I grew up here in Manchester and feel that I didn't really get a lot of chances to connect with nature when I was younger. We did like annual camping trips and random hiking, but like it was mostly in the city, so I didn't get to spend a lot of time that way. And I ended up going to Colby Sawyer as an undergrad, and that is much more up north and much more into nature. They have a day where we cancel classes and climb the mountain, and it's just really fun. They like really get you in touch with your surroundings. So I really started doing sculpture and ceramics at Colby Sawyer, and I was really interested in like flowing organic forms. I liked the way that they moved, and just like trying out different things because I hadn't really gotten that far into playing with clay or doing anything like that. I'm also really interested in the female form. I honestly at the time had no idea why these things were interesting to me, but just something that I enjoyed, so I just kept doing it because I wanted to. But the nice part was I got to play with all different things. So I got to weld with wire, which was really interesting and made me feel super awesome standing outside in like this whole outfit and welding. And just try all different things. So like with this one, I made this like barbed wire by welding tacks onto wire, which was like super hard because they're super tiny and you have these giant gloves on, so it's really challenging. And I made the heart out of wood, and her body was just stacked styrofoam that I just ended up shaving down, and then I shaped her head with plaster, and then just took old sheet music and put it all over her body, which was fun just to do all those different things into one piece. And then this one was just purely plaster, which apparently I'm a mad person because they were all like, oh, did you build like some sort of infrastructure? And I was like, no, I just like made it super thick and just kept adding it. So surprised it stood, but it did. It still lives. And that was an interesting thing to do. I'd never done anything like that before. So this quote, art itself must have begun as nature, not as an imitation of nature, nor as formalized representation of it, but simply as the perception of relationships between humans and the natural world. I feel like that relates a lot to my work because it's how I relate to the natural world and how I would like other people to like make us feel more connected, because we tend to separate ourselves from the natural world. Most people like to be indoors or in the clean spaces with built walls protecting us from the elements, and I just like to be out. So I started trying to do this by adding different plants to the female form, which in the beginning I feel like wasn't quite as successful as I wanted it to be. It ended up, it felt more like I was making clothes than I was like making these two things combined. They still seem pretty separate, just like on top of each other, like they're layered. So I wanted to try and push away from that. So last summer I started to get a little bit more abstract with it to try and make a better connection so you could see them join more, and not just like as two separate things forced together, but as like one entity, really. And this one was like nuts to make. The outside is all slip dots, which took forever and like gave me a wicked bad hand cramp. But the inside, to make that, I had to like cut my piece in half, open it up, and then put the stuff inside and then put it back together, which was terrifying because I was totally ready for it to collapse. But they were all pretty small. At this point I was still working like this big. They were tiny. So then I wanted to start trying to get a little bit bigger, definitely more abstract, so it just hints at the feminine form instead of like providing parts of the anatomy like breasts and the bum. And then I wanted to try painting it. I chose weird colors for some reason though. This like toxic color is a little intense. So then, instead of adding my own color, I wanted to try doing different firings that add the color for you. So I did soda firing on this piece, which is just, so there's no glaze or anything on it. They add baking soda or soda ash to the kiln when it reaches temperature, and it moves around in the atmosphere and creates this sort of coloring and accents on the curves and stuff, which I thought was really cool, but it was shiny, and I didn't really want it to be shiny. I wanted them to look more natural and not fake. So I tried to step back from that, so it was a little bit too much. So then I started doing smoke firings at home, which was really fun. I took this trash can and drilled holes in it, and then you take like wood chips and things like that. You just like layer them in and put your pieces in, and you get to light it up and just let it go. It went for about 8 hours every time I did it. And then you get these sort of results where like the smoke and the ash kind of create its own coloring to your work, which is fun and risky because you never know what it's really going to look like. You could have a rough idea, I guess, but yeah. So these ones I ended up watercoloring because they came out pretty bland. There wasn't a lot to them, so I wanted to try and add something, and my mentor, David Ernster, suggested watercolor because it wouldn't be shiny, so I got to like stay away from that, which was okay. I still enjoyed it, but I think it's a little bit too vibrant, like almost neon in comparison to nature, so I tried to get away with it after a few of these. This one's pretty new. I made that this summer. I really wanted that inside to show. I did tester once for the smoke firing, and Josh and I marked them all with numbers, and we used like an iron oxide to do it, and we expected it was just gonna like burn off and whatever, but some of them actually ended up turning out to be red. I thought it was so cool, so I tried to do it on this piece, and it totally backfired. It didn't work. So I just painted it red because I really wanted it to be red for some reason. But then these other ones, I just kind of let it be how it was. I made like a salt paste. I boiled water and just put an outrageous amount of salt in it, and then just painted the whole inside of this. And then sat it upside down when I did the firing, so all the smoke got stuck up inside. So the inside got really dark, and the outside just has like little hints of it. And then this one I added a little bit of watercolor to, just like some really muddied up brown. And I put it on this rock. I actually wanted it to be 2 pieces, but then somebody suggested to me that it looked so good laying down, and I was like, well, I don't know about laying down, but I looked at it a little bit more and decided a good tilt was nice, and added the rock to be the holding point for the tilt. And so now I've been thinking more about like how I want to present my work, especially since we're doing the gallery. I convinced my fiance to cut a bunch of logs for me. So I'm going to try and set them all up on those. And these are much bigger, like much bigger than all the other ones I did, which is nice. I feel like it also brings a connection in that way because it's like more to our size. So as I go on, I would like to just keep making things bigger. I don't know if I'll keep doing it in clay. Who knows how, like, depending on how big it is, it's going to get pretty crazy if I try to keep doing it this way. And also just try and figure out smoke firing more. There are like people who have got it pretty down, and I am still super new at it. So I'm just trying to like go from there and figure out what's going to work out best for me and what I want to do in the future. So that's